Hello. Hi there, everyone. I'm just finding the feed on Facebook. Okay, yes, I'm there. Hopefully, can you hear me? Okay, good morning, everyone. Hi, Kim. Your puppy's decided it was time for me to get. Oh, I know that feeling, Kim, in Alaska. Although Hazel, well, she's 3 now, but when she has something in her head, that's it. All things stop and we have to sort Hazel out, generally. I don't always pander to her. We get to a stage in the evening when we say enough's enough, but how old is your puppy, Kim? Is it really smally? Hi, Marion. Hi, Linda. Hi, Antonia. Oh, hi, Janet. You've never used this set. Oh, good. So, well, hopefully today I'm going to give you a few ideas on how to use this and colour this as well, because we don't have any stencils with this one. It is just a stamp and die set. Good morning, Grandma Bonnie from Indiana. Hi, Marion. Hi, Margaret. Okay, oh, it's 13 months. There's a Bichon Frise. Oh, lovely. Oh, similar sort of size to Hazel. She's a Shih Tzu and Maltese cross. So not hugely different. Actually, we saw quite a few Bichon Frises on our walk this morning. All in their coats because it was a bit chilly this morning and a bit wet. Okay, Janet, you're not very good at colouring. Oh, don't worry, Janet. Well, I'm hoping I'm going to give you just a few sort of fail-safe techniques here and just different ideas so that you don't get so scared of this set and you'll give it a go. Okay, I've just closed the door there. Okie dokie. Right, let's just get myself organised. Okay, so this is the set that we're using, the Christmas Rose. It's a stamp and die set, and there is also a coordinating embossing folder, but it's from memory, it's a Slimline, so a DL embossing folder. It doesn't emboss our individual images, I don't think, but it does have the same Christmas rose in a DL format, so you get a really nice background. So it coordinates perfectly. I don't have that though, that's why I'm not using that today. Oh, Facebook has decided to disappear. Oh, never mind. I can usually still see your comments, so we shall crack on with that anyway. Oh, are you back again? Lorraine, your niece has a cockatoo, 8 puppies at the end of September, all black. Oh, Lord, you've got a busy household there. Or is it your niece's household, Lorraine? Puppies and a cockatoo, which I think cockatoos can be quite cheeky too, can't they? Okay, so yes, this is the set I'll be using today. It's one I've had for a long time, actually. I can't actually remember when it came out, but it's a really nice one for Christmas. I have actually used it before, but not for Christmas cards because of the nature of the flower. You can use it all year round, so that's why it's a really nice versatile set to use. But you can see what I've made today. It is actually a Christmas card. Is that too dark, actually? Let me just see. I'll just get my phone. I'm going to see if I can put a light on. And does that lighten it up a little bit? Maybe just a tad. Maybe if I try that one. That doesn't seem to make too much difference. I'll leave that side one on. Actually, I'll tell you what, I'll just angle that down. And if I hold that up to the camera now, and if I tilt that to the light, you'll see that there's quite a lot of you'll see there's quite a lot of embossing. Oh, hi, Lisa. How are you? Oh, you're getting ready for tonight's live as well. Oh, yes, it's a great reminder, Lisa. Lisa's live on HSN tonight, so I'm guessing she's got lots of prep to do. So her desk is probably as messy as mine was a little minute ago before I sort of cleared the decks. So this card you can see here, there is actually no colouring involved. What I've done is I've stamped, I've embossed, and I've just die cut out. So if this is a good entry way to start using the set. Oh, hi Mum, how are you? Yes, you can see the embossing better now. So I'll show you through the embossing. I'll show you through some clear embossing, which can be used as a resist that you can use your inks and your stencil brushes over the top of. So the intricate colouring, which I think may just scare a few people or just make a few people a little uncomfortable with starting to use this set, you know, isn't the only option to use this set. So let me just pop up a little slide. Where are we? There. I'll just pop up that little slide there. This is just going to go through all the sets that I've used. And if I do this now, I'll get this out of the way and then we can just sort of craft and see where we go. And hopefully I can show you a few techniques. Okay, so the Christmas Rose stamp, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stamps, and therefore the 6 dies that go with this. And as I say, there is actually an embossing folder, which is still in stock, I believe, on Lisa's website. So you have the dies and you have a nice stamp plate. And we have 3 flowers, 3 leaves, all different sizes. And the flowers are really nice sizes to use, actually. You'll see those as I go along. The background to this particular card you'll see here. Let me just turn that. There we go. Oh, can you see that there? Now what I've done there, I have used the square ornamental set. I've cut out the smaller, more ornamental part of that. I've cut that out with double-sided adhesive. So I created a sticker in effect, and I've used the gilding flakes to colour that in. What I wanted to do really was to show you the difference in the texture between the gilding flakes there, that is the patterned area, and I've sat that onto a backing of the satin card. So I've used the gold gilding flakes. I think they're more of the champagne gold, because you have the yellow gold that's coming out and we have the champagne gold as well. So you can see that they're different in texture, and that sat on top of the gold satin cardstock. So that gives a really nice decorative element in the background. The embossing, so if I just hold this up again, the embossing here, I would have used the Christmas Rose had I had that, but I didn't. So I've actually gone with the Slimline collection with the pine cones. Again, this is still in stock, and this is a really nice set to use as well. And the sentiment, I realised I didn't actually have any really large Christmas sentiments. I might have to rectify that for next Christmas. So next ones that Lisa brings out, I'm going to have to get some really sort of big, bold sentiments. But what I've used is this set here. This has seen me through for a couple of years. It's the Festive Banner set. You get one large stamp, which stamps all your sentiments all in one go, and then one large die, which cuts them out all in one go. So if you do that a couple of times over in different colours, you end up with a whole set of sentiments that are ready to use. So you'll see that this sentiment here, I've actually stamped. Let's tilt that towards the light again. This is really testing my skills today, isn't it? This sentiment has been stamped and heat embossed as well. So let's remove that out of the way so I have a nice clear. Okay. What's this, Grandma Bonnie? You've ordered the sketchy poinsettia. Yes, a similar set to this actually. So any of the techniques that I show you on this today will actually work for any stamp and die set really. So whether you want to do a little bit of embossing or just stamping and colouring it, you know, it really should sort of play to everybody's strengths. I'm just going to check that light again. I might just do it. I might need to use that light actually. So I'm having a bit of a play and just seeing. Oh, there you go. That might make it a little bit easier for me to show you there. Right, so where do we get started? There's so many different ways I want to show you this actually. So if we're going to stamp, then obviously we need to use, if you don't use acrylic blocks to stamp with, which I do still reach for, that is my go-to, and everything that I've stamped that has already been pre-stamped, I've actually stamped with an acrylic block. Well, I've just taken the stamp off the stamp plate, put it onto an acrylic block, and away I go. So what I'll do, I'll just bring in the set here. Put the dies to one side. That's okay. So I'll run through this in case you haven't used these before, or you're new to stamping. Your stamp set will come sandwiched between two acetates, two carrier acetates. So I would encourage you to keep these, particularly the one that is loose, that is unprinted. Now, admittedly, that can easily get lost on your desk when you've got a whole heap of things going on. So it might be an idea just to pop that straight back into your envelope, because it does give some protection when you put the stamps back on your carrier sheet. Now, the first time you use this, particularly stamps that come with dies, I would encourage you initially to take all the stamps off, peel them all off, and that first time that you take them off, they will offer quite a lot of resistance. So you have to be really patient and just gently tease that stamp off of the carrier plate, and just do it gently. It will take you a bit of time, so say it's not a job that you can necessarily rush, but I would encourage you to actually do this just for the first time around, and peel all the stamps off gently, and then just gently place them back on. You don't need to press them back onto the carrier sheet, but what that will do, for one, it'll make it easier each time you go back to your stamp sheet, because they'll just lift off an awful lot easier, as you can see now. But also because they do have dies attached to them, sometimes when you actually peel them off the carrier sheet, you can just stretch them just slightly. You won't, if you're gentle, you won't damage the stamps at all, but what they will need is just a little bit of time just to rest. So once you've taken it off, just allow it to sit back onto the acetate carrier sheet, and just allow it to rest, and that will just allow it just to shrink back into the right shape that it was. And I suppose this could be most useful when you're using the word stamps that have dies attached, because as you're peeling the word stamp off the acetate for the first time, you are stretching it, and therefore you're probably making that word just that little bit longer. If you allow that just to rest, I can't give you a time, maybe half an hour, I say, just to rest, and it just sort of contracts and goes back to shape. And then you'll find that when you come to die cut all of your stamped images, the dies will correspond beautifully as they were designed. So you'll have no problem die cutting them out. So that is actually really important with all of these stamp sets that you may have from Lisa, whether they be images like this or the words. But as I say, you're going to have your preference on how you do your stamping. Obviously, we have the Ulti-mate one, which I will be using now. The Ulti-mate one has the lid on this, so therefore it is classed as a stamping platform. But initially, when I started stamping these out, and you can see all the ones that I've stamped in black here. Let's just hold those up a little bit to the camera. They've stamped beautifully, really crisp in just plain black ink, and I've used a stamping block. So I've just taken my stamp off, sat it on the stamping block. You don't need to press it down because of the cling of the acrylic. Inked it up and stamped straight onto my thing. And I've got the confidence that Lisa Stamps will stamp for me first time, reach out with no worry. So that may be your preference when it comes to stamping, but obviously I'm going to use the stamping platform today. So the Ulti-mate one, so it's going to take up a little bit more area on my desk. So let me leave that there. Right, let me get my cardstock. I've put cardstock all over the place here. So let's just stamp this out in black, which would probably be your first way of doing this. I'm going to take one of the smaller stamps called the middle-sized flower stamp. I'm going to line that up where I want that on my cardstock. Now, I usually work in the middle section of the Ulti-mate actually when stamping, because it gives a better impression. You get a lot more control. So I'm going to put my stamp there, just anchor the cardstock down with the magnets. You can use a washi tape as well, or masking tape, just to secure that down. Pick up my stamp. Again, you don't need to press too hard because the stamp will cling. Now I'm using VersaFine black. Lisa obviously has her black ink, which I don't have actually. I do need to get a re-inker for it. I still haven't got round to it. You can use any of Lisa's inks actually, the interference inks, any of the matte blending inks, and I think that Dawn actually done a live, was it last week? I think it might have been last Thursday, where she showed you a few stamping techniques as well. And she was using all different ranges of inks. So again, those techniques apply to stamping these. But I'm using the VersaFine. I've just inked that up gently, and I'm just going to stamp that down and pull that away. Now, the VersaFine gives me a really fine impression. Lisa stamps I know are perfect. Just missed a little bit there. I didn't press down too hard because, again, that can splay the acetate, not the acetate, the acrylic stamp through no fault of anybody's, and that's just the nature of using this material. It would be better to go in and press lightly a couple of times and re-ink, as opposed to going in and pressing the life out of your stamp initially, because again, you'd lose all that fabulous detail that is sitting in there. So we have that image, which is now available to be coloured. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. I'll probably move it back again in a second, but I already have one that I've die cut out here. Hopefully you can see this. I'm just going to bring it in a plastic mat so I can actually start colouring this. Now, there's a number of ways you can colour this. It can look really, really smart just using a pure black stamped image straight onto your card. And if that's the look that you're going for, then obviously you can put this straight onto your project. But one of the easiest ways to start colouring this would be bring in your stencil brushes and your inks. So I'm hoping you can see this. So what we can do, I'm using rhubarb jam here, and I shall come in with a little bit of strawberry sundae. Actually, I might do that first, thinking about it. Change my mind. There we are. Welcome to my little world of crafting. I do sometimes forget that you're sitting there watching me as well, so I will talk to myself as well sometimes when I have a little decisions to make. So I'm going to start off with the strawberry sundae because I know that this is a really lovely red. I'm just going to pick up some ink, as I would do if I was just using a stencil, and just blend out the initial amount of ink onto my blending mat. And I will use this as a palette, so I'll carry on using this, but it just evenly spreads the ink evenly on your brush. And then all you can do, just really lightly, round and round and round, you can just work that ink into the center of your image there. And you can see now how we're adding the color. You can build up the color just by picking up more and more ink. Now, I quite like these roses quite white, so I'm not going to color this particular one all with this ink. I'm going to sort of diffuse that color out by working from the center, going round and round and just working my way out. And you will see when I pick that up and show you that we have the color just diffusing to the outside. So that's giving us a really subtle coloring, basically. So you can just carry on working into that center and make that center area as dark as you want. Now, this is where I will think I will change my color. So I'll come in with my brush. I know that I've picked up a little bit more ink earlier on, and I'm just going to work right in the center of this because I don't want that darkness of the colour to spread out too far, but I do want that in the centre. Now, if you find that easier to use by using a smaller brush, then swap to a smaller stencil brush, and that will give you a lot more control in the centre, like so. So that has already given us a nice bit of shading. You can use different colours. You can use a yellow. It depends on what you're doing. So you can just use your image just like that. If you want to add a little bit of colour just to the surroundings, then obviously just blend off. The trick to this, and I think Lisa said it as well when she was doing on her live blending, don't go straight up ink directly onto your project, because you'll end up with an amount of ink that you'll struggle to blend out. And the best of us would even struggle to blend that out. So always work off the majority of the ink first. You can go back and pick that up. But what I'm doing now, that's dried out a little bit. I'm just going into these areas where I can see that Lisa has added the detail for us, where she's folded those petals over. So I'm just going with my small brush, I'm just colouring those areas. Now Lisa's done that work for us there, so that's given us an area to colour, so we don't have to think about where we might want to do add the shading. And just with this small stencil brush, I'm able to really pick out those areas and add that colour, almost like a paintbrush. You could, if you wanted to, you could have stamped this onto watercolour card, and you can do exactly the same technique with Lisa's inks, but with a paintbrush. You can water the ink down a little bit with water and come in and add the colour that way as well. I won't do this because I'm using super smooth card, and that doesn't react particularly well to watercolour techniques. But I'd be quite happy to put that flower as it stands onto a card. And if you were to, where's the other colours? If you were to colour all of these flowers in exactly the same way and add them to a card, the colours would mount up perfectly. So I'm making the same card as I've created here. I've just reversed the colours. So I've got a red background. I have the embossed area in white as opposed to black. Let me just tilt that so you can see the embossing. Very tricky to do. There we are. Okay. Then I have my mats and layers with glitter cardstock, and this time with satin cardstock. So if I just show you actually those, it'll show you the difference in how those two gold layers were created. You can have a field day with all the different types of medium and the different finishes of cardstock that you have. So that will sit on there, and you can see that if I were to add the flower onto that cardstock, that pop of colour, especially if you've picked the colour ink out with the cardstock that you're using, you've got that coordination going on, and your colouring can be as easy as that. Now, the other way that you can do this, you can add your colour to the centre of the flower, and I'm just bringing in another flower that I've already stamped and die cut. I'm just going to add this ink to the centre there, so I've got a nice concentrated amount of colour again. And then I'm going to use, oh, that's red grapefruit. I'm going to bring in one of my larger brushes, like my Wonder brush, not the larger size, mainly because I've labelled this as the red one. Then you can just pick up a little bit of ink, again, blend onto your blending mat, and just gently bring that blending in to the outside of the flower. And what you're doing, you're actually colouring the die cut, I suppose, as opposed to the stamped image. But because the stamped image is on there and nestled perfectly in the die cut, you are in effect adding blended colour to the outside of that die. So again, that gives you a really lovely blend. Let me hold that up against that. That will give you a really lovely blend to your die cut. Now, again, I'm keeping the petals quite white there, but there is absolutely nothing stopping you really going to town and using the techniques that Lisa showed you on her live on Friday. We can actually go ahead and make this as dark as we wanted with the colour ink that you've chosen. So you can see that I'm actually taking away the whiteness of those petals there. And because we have that lovely beveled edge that is created when we die cut, we end up with a nice darker ring around the outside of our die cut there. I'm going to put this onto green this time so you can see that red. And if I put that onto the background, again, you've got such a really lovely blend of colour that is really, really simple to achieve without having to sit there and work out your blending with your alcohol pens and your pencils, which if that's what you want to do, then obviously then that's the perfect way of doing it. But this is a really nice way to get started. And if you just layer that up against perhaps one that you've created here, so something slightly different, you have a really nice sort of contrast going on. So that works really well. And of course you can do the same with your leaves and your green colour as well. So let me just do that quickly. So I'm using Woodland moss. I've stamped and die cut one of the leaves. I haven't added any other shading on this, so I'm just going straight in with my blending ink to colour this from the white die cut as it was to the green. And you can see using the same techniques as I would do if I was stenciling. So I'll just concentrate and add a bit more ink to the base of this leaf. You can add an element of shading as well. So if I just scoop up the rest of that ink there. So we now have a lovely shaded green leaf. Again, that shading is really easy to achieve with your blending brush and your ink. And that is ready to then layer underneath your flower also. And again, it's a very different look. It's a different look to what I've achieved here. But it's just as valid and works just as well. And again, just takes away that scariness of having to colour something in properly. I'm just going to clean my mat. But obviously, there are going to be a lot more experienced people with you out there. There's going to be a lot of people who want to learn the colouring as well. So I have my leaf. You can always use your Copics or your alcohol markers and colour in a way that suits you, really. I mean, you can go ahead and you can pick out the details. I'm using like an olive green here. So this is going to work out really dark. You can go through the whole leaf and add colour that way. If you're experienced, you know how your pens work and your colour combinations, but you can easily go through and colour your image that way. That's worked out really dark. Or you can just pick out details. I quite like to just add a little bit of colour. Actually, it probably wasn't the best colour to use, was it? It's a little bit dark, but I do sometimes quite like just to add a little bit of shading with my colour and just put it in certain areas, like so. And then use a blending ink, which most alcohol markers come with a blending ink, which is colourless, or you can use a lighter colour and you can just blend out that colour. So you end up with a little bit of shading going on with your leaf as well. Again, this is something that takes time. It's more of a project and you can get super, super effects from this. Now, this is something also that I can get really quite lost in and forget to talk to you. So I won't carry on too much with that. But you can add your details that way. And if you're experienced and you're happy using alcohol markers, then obviously this is another option for you to use. it's not something I'm happy to actually sort of show you too much, because it's sort of a little bit trial and error with me. I'm much happier with the inks, but it's another option for you to use. Or you can use your colouring pencils as well. Okay, so that's a couple of options to show you. Now, what I will show you as well, you can emboss, as I've done on the red, and everything, all the embossing, all the techniques with the embossing powder, that I'm showing you on white card can also be applied to using the coloured card. Because if you use coloured card and you stamp either with ink directly onto coloured card, then you don't need to do any colouring. That's already done for you. And if you die cut, then sort of, hey presto, you've got sort of a ready-made image. But with the blending inks, you can also blend over the top of these as well. So I'm going to use my red ink again. This flower has been embossed, and I shall show you this in a second. This has been embossed with gold embossing powder, actually gold sparkling embossing powder, which acts as a resist. So there is nothing stopping you blending your ink over the top of this as well. And you can go dark and you can get a really solid blend of colour over the top of this. Or you can actually stamp onto watercolour card, and then you can colour your images with a little bit more detail with your inks and watercolour in the same way as I just used a stamped image here. Now, what I would do, I would wait for that ink to dry, and then I would just get a little cloth or a little bit of tissue, and I would just buff over the top of that embossing folder, and that just brings out the shine on that embossing folder again. Not embossing folder, sorry, the embossing powder. Let me, if you see that, yeah, if I hold that in that direction there, you can see where the flower has been coloured and then the gold is actually showing through. Now, I'm using gold because I'm creating Christmas, but then the embossing powder comes in all sorts of different colours. So I think what I'll do now, let's just clean that up. Ooh. There's another really nice way. If you have clear embossing powder, I keep so many embossing things. If you have clear embossing powder, you can use that as a resist. So I'm going to bring in my Ulti-mate again. I'm going to stamp a leaf this time, I think. So I'm going to put my leaf right side down onto a piece of paper. And you get a clear embossing ink. You can use VersaFine. There's other Versamark, sorry. There's lots of different makes on the market at the moment. So you may have one of those to use. Now, this is a really nice way actually to create backgrounds. Let me just make sure that that's up in the screen there. Okay, so I'm going to stamp this leaf in clear embossing ink. Now, excuse the state of my ink pad. Although I have black on there, this will actually stamp clear. Now, if I just raise that slightly, I don't know if I tilt that to the light, you may just see a slight watermark where that leaf has been stamped. It's a lot more apparent in real life, so you can actually see where your images have gone. So if you wanted to create a background, you can then reposition your stamp next to where you stamped initially. And you'd have to work relatively quickly for this, but this ink does stay quite wet on the paper for a little while to give you the chance to come in with your embossing powder. So I've stamped that leaf twice. So I'm just going to leave it at that for a moment. Take that thing away. Right, it's a spare piece of copy paper, just so as I can catch the embossing powder. Now, again, I've run out of Lisa's clear, so apologies, but this is just a clear embossing powder. You just cover your image, you shake off the excess, and it's left you with an impression. Hopefully you can just see that. Let me just tip away that powder. Now I'm going to heat set this. Actually, what I'll do, I'm going to stamp another leaf. I'm going to freehand this one. And I'm going to emboss this one in gold, actually, so you can see how the embossing turns. It'll be a bit tricky to show you the embossing with the clear ink. I'll show you, but you'll be able to watch it with the gold. So I'm going to stamp that down quickly. Now I'm going to use Lisa's Superfine Sparkle embossing powder. This is the gold. It comes in other colours as well. I think there's a black, there's a clear, it's a white and a silver. And I do believe they are on the website as well at the moment. So again, I'm just covering my embossing with the gold powder. So you can see that there. Now the clear embossing powder looks exactly the same there as the gold, but obviously it's a bit trickier for you to see. And I'm going to get my heat tool and attempt to show you how this turns. So my heat tool is actually quite quiet, so hopefully it's not going to disturb you too much. And if I just come to the camera, hopefully this won't take too long. You can just watch this turn. Okay, so the gold is turning just now. Hopefully you can see the shine appear from the gold. Bear with me. It's a little bit hot on my fingers. There we are. So you can see the shine appear on the gold. The clear embossing folder turns in exactly the same way, but obviously it's just a little bit trickier for you to see. But you'll see when you angle the embossing in the right way, you can see all the clear powder turn shiny, and that's when you know that that has been done. So again, that just takes a little bit of patience. I'm just going to come and heat that from the top because that'll make that a little bit quicker. Okay, so that's done. If I just turn that, you can now see the clear images. So I'm going to leave that just to cool down just slightly. It doesn't take any time at all. You can then give it a quick waft about if you like, but it doesn't take that much time at all. So bring in my blending mat again. You don't want to use a heat mat anywhere near these sort of plastic mats. That would not be a good idea. But if you were to create a background, if you were to stamp all over with the clear ink and the clear embossing powder, what you can then do, that acts as a resist. You can then come in with your ink and start blending over the top again. In the same way that, say, Lisa showed you how to create the backgrounds the other day on her live, and I've done it many times before as well in my lives. We just create a nice smooth blend of ink over the top, and you'll see, as if by magic, you'll see the image start appearing. Okay? So we create that blend over the top. I'm not going over the gold because I've shown you that technique. So we can see now that the leaves have really popped forward. This creates a really nice background. again, what you can do, you can just buff that up slightly, come in with a piece of tissue and just wipe over the top of that, and that just takes away any ink that's sitting on top of your embossing powder, because it reacts as a resist, and you have the clear or the paper, the coloured paper underneath show through. And then what you can do, you can then use these images to die cut. Make sure I get the right die cut out of there. So instead of having say a black stamped image and die cut out, you can actually die cut that leaf and you have a resist image. So you actually do have some dimension on that as well, because that clear embossing powder will just add a sheen, a nice sheen on top of that ink. So that's another way that you can actually colour your die cuts as well. So obviously I've done this onto white card, but you can emboss in whichever colour you choose onto coloured cardstock as well. So here we have the gold embossing powder on the red cardstock. And on this card here, I've also embossed directly onto the green cardstock. Okay. So Janet, how do you think you feel about this now then, Janet? You prefer the colour on the smaller flower? On this one here? Yeah, that works out really nice, doesn't it? And again, I've used the same colour all the way around, but there's nothing stopping you putting yellow in the middle or just playing around with all the inks that you have, actually. I mean, you're so familiar with the inks that you have from Lisa now, using them in all different ways through your stencil. So that familiarity will actually make it a lot easier for you to choose your colours and blend them onto your die cuts like this now. So let's say today was more about a technique thing, but I will put this card together. I'm using a 5x7 inch card blank, standard card blank today. I just created a small mat that sits on top of that. So that's just slightly smaller than the 5x7 size in red. Okay, let's see if my glue's working. There we are. So I'm going to glue this down, then I can start thinking about the other flowers that we can build this up onto. So this is my embossed piece. This is the, oh, there you go, the pine cones embossed onto textured white cardstock. So that looks really classic. I really do like white embossing. Lisa's embossing folders are so detailed that they look fabulous just on white without any colour. Now, what you could do actually, if you wanted to, you could just add some shading onto the top of this with your, no, it's not crushed velvet, sorry. Let me thinking. With your iridescent, oh, I'm thinking of the wrong words here. You can add some colour onto here with your other colours. So if you wanted to just to highlight these pine cones a little bit, interference, that was the word I was looking for. Okay, so if you wanted to just add a little bit of colour just to your embossing, you can easily add that with any of your inks, any of your blending inks, but I'm going to add a little bit of the interference ink. So I'm going to take the majority of it off. I don't want it to go too mad, and just pick out some of those details really gently on top of that embossing as well. And using the interference ink, then obviously you're going to have an element of mica showing through as well. So I don't want to go too mad with that, but that just adds a little bit of extra colour to your background. Right. Now I did cut where did I cut that out? See, I have so many bits and pieces. Oh, there we are. So many bits and pieces. Right, I did cut this mat out into the back as well, different ways. So I've used Lisa's glitter paper and Lisa's satin cardstock, obviously, and I've cut them out in 2 different ways. So there's 2 completely different looks. So it's really nice just to have a play around with both of those. So I think I'll go with the satin cardstock in the back and the glittery frame. So we have that sitting there. The glittery frame I can just add into the centre. So it's really simple card today, really straightforward. And then that just gives us our backdrop to add our flowers. So we have our leaf that we've colour tinted with our inks. We can have our flowers and we can layer the flowers up as well. Now, there was just one more thing that I wanted to show you. I have also had a little play with the gilding flakes, and what I've done, I've just die cut the leaves, haven't stamped them, and I've added the gilding flakes on top. But what I've done, I've actually die cut the leaves out from self-adhesive or double-sided paper. And I've in effect created a sticker. So I've taken off the top protective sheet, which exposes the adhesive. Then I've added the gilding flakes to that layer, which then means that I can peel off the backing and I have a sticker available to me. So there we are. So if I take that off, we now have a sticker, and that's the gilding flakes, pure gilding flakes on double-sided adhesive. So that's another really lovely look that you can use for any of your die cuts, actually. If you don't have any sort of the right colour cardstock, you can also use that same technique for Lisa's glitter. And just while I'm chatting to you, I'm looking for a leaf that I had die cut out from the double-sided adhesive, and I can't find where I put it. Do you know what? I'll find it once I've gone, I'm sure. There's a leaf sitting around somewhere. Okay. Oh, there it is, hiding under my ink. So this is the double-sided adhesive. So it comes with 2 protective layers on there. So what you would do, you take off that top layer, you'd expose the adhesive. Now what I will do, I'll show you this with glitter. So this is just the final technique for you today. So I've just taken the top layer off. So all of that is now is adhesive that's exposed. I'm keeping the protective layer because that just enables me to not use my fingers and get so stuck on there. So onto a piece of copy paper. I'm using the glitter. This is Lisa's Superfine glitter, but you can also do exactly the same with the gilding flakes. And you can just sprinkle that across the same way as you would do embossing powder, and just press that all into the adhesive. So in effect, what you're doing is creating a sticker if you're using double-sided adhesive. And I think Lisa has some of this in her shop as well. I know she has done in the past. So you just press all that glitter in, all the gilding flakes, whichever you have to hand. You need to tap off all the excess, and then you have your die cut, glittery die cut. So if you have any type of glitter, then this would work. Obviously, we do have Lisa's glitter cardstock as well, but if you've run out of that, or if there's other different colours that you wanted to use, then that is a really nice technique to use as well. And again, that would make a really lovely contrast in texture and colour to fit onto your card as well. So I've got an awful lot going on that cardstock. Let me just move that out of the way. There'll be glitter and all sorts everywhere, and gilding flakes, and Hazel, I think, will sparkle later on. She really will. So there's an awful lot of techniques for you there. So this video will obviously stay on YouTube for you to rewatch or catch up with, craft along with, or just be used as a reference point if you just give you the encouragement to just get started with your stamps and your die cut set. So hopefully that is really useful for you as well. There is another video on there which I'll try and find actually, where I've used this same set in a non-Christmas card, I think, where I've actually coloured the flowers a little bit more precisely, I suppose. But I just wanted to show you lots of different ways on how to use this. And don't be frightened of using your stamps and your sets. And I know Lisa set a challenge on Friday, didn't she, to look through your stash and find those sets that you either haven't opened yet or you haven't used in a long while, and just to make something with them, or just get them out and just have a try. Even if you don't make a card, just perhaps practice your blending and then show us what you've been doing. So that's just a really good way to find new favourite sets as well. So I shall leave that there with you for this afternoon. I've given you an awful lot to think about. I've gone through an awful lot of techniques for you, so I hope you found that really useful. I shall be back with you on Thursday. Lisa will obviously have a usual Friday night live with us Friday evening, but don't forget, particularly for the international customers there, the viewers and the people over in America, Canada, that Lisa will be on HSN tonight. I'm not sure of the times, but I know the times will be popped into the group, and Lisa will send out some reminders for us. So I'm sure that will be really great to watch as well. So thanks for joining me this afternoon, and I shall see you all on Thursday. Take care, everyone.